I put on my list the Dunwich Horror from the 1970s, and it was one of the very first Lovecraft adaptations. This was at a time when, the idea of Lovecraftian horror was still, I mean, even in literature was still a very new thing, but certainly on screen, I don't think anybody had really conceived of a way of representing Lovecraftian horror cinematically. I talked about this before in my Mountains of Madness video series, but I think it's the first one that actually tries to conceive of a specifically Lovecraftian cinematic horror, or a way of representing Lovecraftian horror on screen. And the way it does that is by trying to go into these more psychedelic areas of having hallucinatory dream sequences and using fisheye lenses and using 2001: A Space Odyssey style filters, and chemical baths on the images. It's very of its time in a lot of ways, but I think it kind of works for what the story is, because it's one of Lovecraft's weirder stories. It has, an amorphous mass as its main monster that actually isn't physically visible in our dimension. And so it'd be hard to think of a way to represent that on screen without resorting to some sort of, psychedelic technique like this. It reinterprets certain aspects of the original story. It's about this weird character named Wilbur trying to get a hold of a copy of the Necronomicon at the Miskatonic University so that he can find the rituals he needs to be able to summon his father, one of the outer gods, or one of the ancient Lovecraftian demons, Yog-Sothoth, into our world. In the original story, that character, it's sort of a reflection of like a lot of Lovecraft's racist attitudes, the way he's described as like being very repulsive and having the characteristics of like what Lovecraft considered, of different ethnic people. And so it's really ugly the way he describes a lot of it in the original story. This movie, I think, actually does something really clever in reinterpreting that, of making him almost like a Manson sort of figure. And this movie would have been made shortly after, the Manson murders would have hit the news, but by making him, more sexy and seductive and weirdly charismatic, but also very sinister and threatening. Dean Stockwell plays the character in the movie, and I think he does a really good job of like getting all of those different elements together. It adds an interesting sort of edge to the movie that is very topical for the time. And also, I really like the horror sequences with the monster. They didn't have much to work with, and it's an impossible monster to show on screen. But yeah, by using all of these filters and all of these psychedelic techniques, they find a fun, interesting way of representing it. And the movie does, I think, build a creepy atmosphere that you get drawn into. It's very slowly paced. I don't know if horror fans today will find it so easily accessible. But if you can commit to the pacing that it has, that it's got this slower, sort of more atmospheric pace to it, I think you get really drawn into it.
Do you still have the poster for Dunwich Horror?
I do still have that, yeah.
I was going to say that, somewhere in your home, or maybe it's not put up, you have a poster for the Dunwich Horror. And I know that because we lived together, and it hung in our living room for many years. It's a great poster. It's like a woman being attacked by some bizarre creature, and and he has Dean Stockwell's name on there. So I at first, when you were describing it, I was for some reason thinking it was a different, like the same story, Dunwich Horror, but I thought it might have been a different movie version. But then when you said Dean Stockwell, I was like, oh, it is that version that you're talking about. That's awesome.
Yeah. I got that poster at a convention, and it's still hanging in my bedroom. Still got it.
It's not really what I'd want to see before going to bed, honestly. Like this grisly murder occurring.
Yeah, we got Dunwich Horror on one side of the room, and then we got Nightmare Alley on the other side of the room. So it's good bedtime material.
I can imagine, yeah.